Paradromatales. It was a comment that wasn't supposed to hurt, but it did. After months of struggling with my health, my husband jokingly said he'd leave me if my legs got fat. It shattered my confidence in ways I never imagined. Was I overacting, or was it something deeper? It all started with small, unexplained symptoms that grew over time, but I never imagined they would take me to this point. At first, it seemed like a random fatigue, some days feeling more tired than others, but soon it became a constant. A pervasive exhaustion that no amount of sleep could fix. I thought maybe it was just stress, or maybe I was just pushing myself too hard. But when the doctors mentioned EVE, or myalgic encephalomyelitis, everything started to make sense. A chronic illness known for its extreme fatigue and a range of other debilitating symptoms, felt like a sentence I hadn't yet come to terms with. It's not a simple cold, where you can take some rest and be better in a few days. No, this illness grinds at you, sapping every ounce of energy, every moment of clarity, leaving you feeling like you're living in a fog. I felt like my own body was betraying me. The worst part wasn't even the physical exhaustion. It was the feeling of losing control over my own body. And that's exactly how it felt. My body was changing in ways I couldn't predict, and I had no idea what was coming next. A scan revealed that my inguinal lymph node was reacting to some kind of infection, possibly linked to the weakened immune system that often accompanies ME. The fluid buildup around it had been present for months, refusing to go down. Doctors told me I'd need more scans to see what could be done. If the node was scared, I might need plastic surgery to remove the fluid. Worse still, there was a chance they might have to remove the entire node. And the thing that was really terrifying, the doctors warned me that I needed to keep my weight and lifestyle in check to avoid potential fluid buildup in my legs. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. I've always been someone who took care of my body. I've gone to the gym regularly, eaten healthy, and tried to maintain a healthy weight. But now it felt like my health, something that had always been in my control, was spiraling out of my grasp. I could no longer predict what would happen next. Then, the thought of fluid buildup in my legs began to haunt me. It wasn't just about the physical change, it was about the fear of losing control of my body entirely. I had always been proud of how I looked and felt physically. Being active, healthy, and strong was a big part of who I was. The idea that something I couldn't control might change my body permanently scared me. What if my legs started to swell? What if my body didn't respond to the treatment as I hoped? It felt like I was on the edge of losing everything I had worked for. And through all of this, my husband had been my rock, at least, that's what I thought. He was there for me in the early days of my illness, offering support and encouragement. But everything shifted when he made his comment about fat legs. I remember standing there in shock when he made the joke. My mind couldn't process it at first. Did he really just say that? Of course, I knew he didn't mean it seriously. At least, I thought he didn't. But in that moment, it felt like my worst fear was being laughed at. Here I was, struggling with a body that was changing beyond my control, and he was making jokes about the very thing I feared most. It wasn't just the words themselves. It was the way they made me feel. How could he, of all people, make light of something so deeply personal and scary? It was as though my worth was tied to my physical appearance, and if my legs changed, I would no longer be worthy of his love. The comment made me question everything I thought I knew about our relationship. For as long as I could remember, my husband had been my unwavering support. Through every tough time, every challenge, he was there. Steady, dependable, and loving. When I first started feeling unwell, he was the one who urged me to see the doctor, who held my hand during the tests and reassured me when I was scared. He was the one who comforted me when the fatigue hit hard, telling me it would be okay, that we'd get through this together. For the longest time, he was everything I needed, my rock, my partner, my confidant. But then, something shifted. The first signs were subtle. Little comments here and there about my health, maybe even well-meaning, but they felt different. He'd make remarks like, "You're getting a bit tired again, aren't you?" Or, "You should rest more." I know he was trying to help, but it felt like a reminder of my failing health, a constant check on my condition that made me feel smaller, less capable. I was already struggling with the loss of control over my body, with the fear of my health deteriorating in ways I couldn't predict. I didn't need someone to remind me of that. I needed support, empathy, and patience. The same patience he had always shown me when things got tough. I didn't need him to act like my doctor or my judge. I needed him to act like my partner. But then came the comment that I can't shake from my mind. I wish I could forget it, but it lingers in my thoughts. It wasn't just a careless joke. It felt like something deeper. He joked that if my legs started to get fat, he'd leave me. He laughed it off like it was no big deal, like I should laugh along with him. like it was some lighthearted moment. But it wasn't lighthearted for me, not in the slightest. It hit me like a punch in the stomach. Did he really think that my appearance was more important than my health? Did he really think that if my body changed, I would no longer be worthy of his love and commitment? I'd always been someone who took pride in my appearance, in staying fit and healthy. But here I was, struggling with a health condition I couldn't control. And the one person I thought would understand, who had stood by me through thick and thin, was making a joke about the very thing that scared me the most. I didn't know how to process it. How could he make light of something so serious, something I had no control over? My legs swelling from fluid buildup wasn't something I could prevent with willpower or discipline. It wasn't just vanity, it was about my body fighting against me, and I didn't know what was next. I needed him to be there for me, to reassure me that no matter what happened with my body, he loved me. All of me. Instead, his comment made me feel like a failure, like I was a burden, like my worth was tied solely to my physical appearance. It wasn't the first time I had questioned our relationship, but it was the first time I felt like I wasn't good enough for him. Not because of my health, but because I wasn't living up to some unrealistic standard he seemed to hold. His comment made me wonder if he saw me as a person or just as a physical being. Did he love me for my soul, my kindness, my strength? Or did he love me because I looked a certain way? I tried to push it aside. I told myself it was just a joke, that he didn't mean it like that. But deep down, the sting lingered. I felt like I couldn't talk to him about it because when I tried, he brushed it off, telling me it was just the truth. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that it was just a misunderstanding, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that comment had shaken me in a way I couldn't ignore. It had changed the way I saw him, and more importantly, the way I saw myself in our relationship. I thought he was my rock. But now, I was left wondering if I was just another thing to be discarded when I no longer met the physical expectations he had for me. I needed him to be my partner, but instead, I felt like I was standing on my own in this battle with my health, unsure of where he stood in my corner. The more I thought about the comment, the harder it became to push it aside. At first, I tried to tell myself that it was just a joke, that he didn't mean anything by it. After all, we had been through so much together, and he had always been supportive of me. But as the hours went by, I kept replaying it in my head, and the more I thought about it, the more it hurt. Fat legs? That's what he said. He joked about leaving me if my legs got fat, as though it was something trivial. But for me, it wasn't just about the joke. It was about the fact that he seemed to think my physical appearance mattered more than my health. Something I couldn't control. And that thought rattled me. I had been struggling with my health for months, uncertain about what was happening to my body. My immune system was compromised, and my body was changing in ways I didn't fully understand. I was already scared. Scared of the unknown, scared that things might get worse, and scared of how my body might change. So hearing that my husband, the person who was supposed to love me no matter what, would consider something like that a deal breaker was like a slap in the face. I wanted to brush it off, to laugh it off, as he had intended. But I couldn't. It felt like he had just pointed out my biggest fear and dismissed it like it was no big deal. Would he really leave me over something as superficial as my legs? Would that be the breaking point for him? Something that wasn't even guaranteed to happen. Something that was tied to my health and not my character. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was losing control. Not just over my body, but over my relationship. This was someone who had been my partner, my ally through every challenge. But now, I wasn't sure anymore. Was I really just a body to him? Was I only valuable as long as I met some physical standard? The love and support he had given me through the years suddenly felt conditional, and that realization left me feeling exposed and vulnerable. I had always been proud of the way I took care of myself. I had worked hard to maintain my health and fitness, and now, with this illness, I was being forced to face a version of myself I didn't recognize. The last thing I needed was for my husband to add to my insecurities. I didn't need him to remind me of my fears. I needed him to reassure me, to tell me that no matter what my body went through, I would still be loved. Instead, his comment made me feel like I was only as valuable as my physical appearance. I found myself questioning everything. Did he really love me for who I was, or was I just someone he could be with as long as I stayed healthy, beautiful, and perfect? The love I thought we shared felt tainted, and I couldn't stop wondering if this was just the beginning of something worse. Would there be more moments where he valued my looks over my well-being? How deep did his love really go? I wasn't sure what to do next. How could I address this with him? How could I make him understand just how hurtful that comment was? I couldn't ignore it, but I didn't know if I could have the conversation without feeling like I was pushing him away or overacting. In my heart, I knew I wasn't overacting, but the doubt crept in anyway. After all, hadn't he been there for me through so much? But now, I wasn't sure if that would be enough. The days after the comment passed slowly, but it felt like my mind was racing. The more I replayed his words in my head, the more the weight of them settled on my chest. Fat legs. A comment that seemed so casual, almost like a joke. But it wasn't just a joke for me. It was something that chipped away at everything I thought I knew about my relationship. I started questioning everything. Had I misread him all these years? How could I be so sure that he loved me for who I truly was if he could say something like that? What did that comment really say about how he saw me? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my husband's love had always seemed unconditional. At least, that's what I thought. He'd been my rock, supporting me through everything from my insecurities to my challenges with my health. But now I wasn't so sure. The idea that something so superficial, the appearance of my legs, could potentially be a deal breaker was deeply unsettling. It made me feel like I wasn't enough. Not enough if I wasn't healthy or if my body changed in any way. I couldn't stop wondering, did he really love me for the person I am, or was I just a body to him? Was the foundation of our relationship built on physical attraction alone? I wanted to believe that it wasn't, but his words made me feel like that was exactly the case. How could he, of all people, make me feel like my worth was tied to something as fleeting as my appearance? My body was changing, yes, but that didn't mean I was any less of a person. That didn't mean I deserved less love or care. And yet, his joke made me feel like if I didn't live up to his expectations, I'd lose him. As I grappled with these thoughts, I started to feel an emotional distance growing between us. I couldn't look at him the same way. When he would touch me, kiss me, or tell me he loved me, all I could hear was his comment echoing in my head. Would he really leave me if I didn't stay in perfect shape? Could I trust him when I felt like my body was no longer something I could control? What did he see when he looked at me? The doubt settled like a stone in my stomach. I had been vulnerable with him, opening up about my fears, my insecurities, and my illness. But now I was left wondering if he had seen all of that, or if he was just seeing my legs, my body, and how they might change. I didn't know if I could ever truly feel safe with him again. The trust I had built up over the years seemed fragile, like a glass wall that could shatter with a single word. I had trusted him with my heart, with my health, but now I felt like he was questioning my worth in a way that no one should. How could I go on, wondering if he'd leave me over something I couldn't control? I wanted to talk to him, to express how deeply his comment had hurt me, but I was scared. Scared of how he'd react. Scared of making things worse, scared that he might dismiss my feelings again. I felt so small, so vulnerable in that moment. I didn't want to beg for reassurance. I didn't want to feel like I had to prove my worth. I just wanted him to love me truly and completely without any strings attached. But now, I wasn't sure if that kind of love existed. And so, I sat in my silence, trying to find the courage to ask the questions that had been eating away at me. Does he love me for who I am, or only for how I look? The silence between us felt suffocating, every passing moment more painful than the last. I had been walking around with this heavy weight on my chest, the hurt from my husband's comment gnawing at me, refusing to let go. But the thought of confronting him, the fear of how he might react, held me back. What if he didn't understand? What if he dismissed my feelings again? But I couldn't live like this anymore. The uncertainty, the doubt. It was starting to chip away at my self-worth, at the trust I had in our relationship. I needed to hear it from him. I needed to know where I stood. That evening, when we were alone, I knew it was time. My hands were shaking as I walked over to him, sitting on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV as if nothing had changed. I took a deep breath and sat beside him. I could feel the tension rising in my body, but I knew I had to say something. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He turned to me, sensing the shift in the air. "Of course. What's up?" he replied casually, but I could see the hesitation in his eyes. I took another deep breath. This wasn't going to be easy. I needed to speak my truth. "I've been thinking a lot about something you said the other day," I began. He looked at me, his expression shifting. "I know you were joking when you said you'd leave me if my legs got fat, but it really hurt," I continued, trying to keep my voice steady. "It made me feel like my appearance is the only thing that matters to you. Like if something happens to my body, you won't love me anymore. It makes me feel like I'm only worth something when I look a certain way." His face dropped, and I could see the surprise in his eyes. He opened his mouth to say something, but I raised my hand to stop him. "I know you probably didn't mean it like that," I said quickly. But it felt like you were saying that if I change, if I don't stay the same, you'd walk away. That scares me. He fell silent, and for a moment, I thought he might not say anything at all. But then, slowly, he spoke. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to joke around. I didn't think it would upset you like this. Why would you joke about something like that? I asked, my voice trembling. It's not just about my legs or my health. It's about how you see me. I'm already dealing with something I can't control, and for you to say that, it made me feel like I'm not enough anymore. I'm not just my body, I'm more than that. He looked at me, his expression softening. He seemed to be processing what I said, and for the first time in days, I felt like he was really hearing me. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice quieter now. I wasn't thinking. I never meant to make you feel it. Right. You're so much more than just your body. I love you for who you are, inside and out. The words felt like a bomb to my wounded heart, but there was still a part of me that couldn't let go of you. I just need you to understand, I said softly. I need you to support me through this, not make jokes about things I'm already terrified of. I don't need someone to remind me of my fears, I need someone to remind me that I'm not alone in this. He nodded, guilt washing over his face. You're right, I should have been more sensitive. I'll do better, I promise. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't a magic fix. But hearing him acknowledge my feelings, hearing him truly apologize, made me believe that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild from here. It was the first step in healing the emotional distance that had grown between us. I love you, he said, pulling me into a hug. And I'll be here for you, no matter what happens. We're in this together. As I held on to him, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I wasn't sure where our relationship would go from here, but for the first time in days, I felt like we were on the same team again. The conversation between us that night had been difficult, but it was exactly what I needed. As my husband held me, his apology felt sincere, and I could feel the weight lifting off my chest. For the first time in days, I felt like the walls between us were starting to come down. But as I lay there, thinking about everything, I couldn't help but wonder, had he really understood the gravity of what he'd said? I had been feeling so vulnerable, uncertain of what to expect from my health and my body. All I needed was reassurance, support, and patience, and yet, when I needed him most, he made a comment that left me questioning his love for me. I understood that he didn't intend to hurt me, but the truth was he had failed to see what really mattered in that moment. In the days that followed, I could see the regret in his eyes every time we spoke. He was quieter, more thoughtful, and seemed to be reflecting on what had happened. I wasn't sure how much of it was really sinking in, but one evening, just a few days after our confrontation, he sat me down on the couch. His face was serious, and I could tell this wasn't just another casual conversation. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. He started, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. And I realized that what I said was completely thoughtless. You're right, it wasn't just a joke, and it wasn't funny. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to feel reassured, but part of me was still holding back, still waiting for him to fully understand what he had done. I've always prided myself on being the person you can lean on, he continued. But in that moment, I made it about something that doesn't even matter. I made it about your appearance when it should have been about you. The person I love and want to support, no matter what happens to your body. I should have never said what I did. There was a long pause as he stared at the floor, clearly reflecting on his words. The silence between us was heavy, but I could sense that he was genuinely trying to understand the depth of his mistake. I had heard his apology before, but now it felt different. Now, I could see the regret and the realization in his eyes. He wasn't just sorry because I was upset. He was sorry because he truly understood how deeply he had hurt me. I can't change what I said, he went on, his voice cracking slightly. But I can do better. I need to be the partner you deserve. Not someone who makes jokes when you're vulnerable. I need to be someone who lifts you up, especially when you're struggling. For the first time, I truly felt like he was seeing me, not just as his wife, but as a person with my own fears, struggles, and insecurities. It wasn't just about the joke anymore. It was about him acknowledging the pain I had been carrying and understanding that his words had made it worse. His sincerity was the first step toward healing, and I could feel the walls inside me begin to soften. I'm so sorry, he said again, this time with a conviction I hadn't heard before. I love you, and I want to be there for you, all of you. I should have done that better. I could feel the warmth of his apology, the weight of his words. It wasn't about erasing what had happened, but about recognizing the harm and vowing to do better. As I looked at him, I realized that while he couldn't change the past, he was willing to make sure that the future was different. "Thank you," I whispered, finally allowing myself to feel the trust start to rebuild. "I just need to know that you'll be there for me no matter what happens. That's all." And in that moment, I knew we had taken the first real step toward healing. He had listened, he had understood, and for the first time in a while, I felt like we were truly in this together. After that conversation, things didn't magically go back to normal, but they did begin to feel different. There was a sense of vulnerability between us now that wasn't there before. A space where we could both be honest, even when it was hard. Healing doesn't happen overnight, and I knew that this wasn't going to be a quick fix. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were on the same page, and that felt like a small victory. The next few days were quiet, but in a good way. We spent more time together. Not just physically, but emotionally. We talked. We laughed. We shared more about how we were feeling, something we hadn't done in a while. The silence that had once felt heavy between us now felt like a space where we could rebuild. I could feel the trust starting to return, slowly but surely. As my husband listened, really listened, to my fears and frustrations, I could see that he was committed to being there for me. He wasn't just saying the words anymore, he was showing up. Whether it was helping me get through a tough day or just being present when I felt overwhelmed, he made an effort to demonstrate that his love for me was deeper than my appearance. It wasn't just about what I looked like, it was about who I was, and he was finally starting to see that again. We also started discussing my health more openly. I was still unsure about the next steps with my doctors, still facing uncertainty about the fluid buildup and what might happen in the future. But instead of shutting down and retreating into silence like I had been, I found myself leaning on him more than I had in a long time. There was a shift in how we communicated. It wasn't just about me asking for help, it was about us facing this challenge together. In those moments, I realized how much I had needed him to be my partner, to be by my side in ways that went beyond physical support. It wasn't just about him telling me he loved me. It was about him showing it through his actions, through his understanding, and through his commitment to being emotionally available. It wasn't easy, and I knew there would be days when the doubts crept back in. Days when I questioned whether we'd truly moved past this. But what mattered was that we were trying, and we were doing it together. The healing process wasn't just about my body getting better. It was about our relationship getting stronger. It was about learning to trust each other again and learning to communicate openly, even when the truth was hard to hear. I also began to realize something important. I had to heal too. I couldn't expect him to fix everything. I had to find ways to manage my own insecurities, to trust in my own worth regardless of what happened to my body. It wasn't easy, but I knew that I couldn't rely on him or anyone else to validate my self-worth. That had to come from within. Together, we were learning. We were learning how to handle the tough conversations, how to be vulnerable without fear of judgment, and how to love each other despite the imperfections. It wasn't about perfection, it was about being there for each other, especially when it felt the hardest. And slowly, I started to feel the weight of the past few weeks lift. The healing process was just beginning, but it felt like we were on the right path. A path we would walk together. As time passed, I began to understand something crucial about our relationship: respect. Not just respect for each other's opinions, but respect for each other's emotions, boundaries, and vulnerabilities. It wasn't enough for my husband to just apologize. It wasn't enough for him to just say the words. What mattered was whether he could change his behavior. Whether he could understand the importance of respecting me, not just physically, but emotionally. The truth was, I had never really set clear boundaries with him before. We'd always been close and I trusted him completely. But in the process, I'd allowed some of my own needs to go unmet. I had been afraid to express my fears and insecurities. I didn't want to be a burden, didn't want to seem weak or needy, especially when it came to my health. But that was part of the problem. By not setting clear boundaries, I allowed myself to be vulnerable in ways that weren't healthy for me. The incident with the fat legs comment made me realize that I hadn't been respecting myself as much as I should have. I had let my self-worth be tied to how I looked, and when my husband made that comment, it made me question whether he valued me for more than just my physical appearance. But the more I thought about it, the more I understood that I had a part in this too. I had let myself believe that my value came from my body and not from my heart or soul. In many ways, this situation became a turning point for both of us. We started to talk more openly about our boundaries and what we needed from each other to feel loved and respected. For me, that meant expressing that my health was something I couldn't control and that I needed support not judgment, as I navigated this difficult time. I needed him to understand that my body was changing and that, even though I couldn't control it, I was still the same person. I needed him to respect the emotional space I needed when things got tough. For him, it meant understanding that his comments about my appearance, even as a joke, were hurtful. He had to learn that his words had consequences, and that love wasn't just about how we looked but how we treated each other when we were at our most vulnerable. He had to realize that respect wasn't just about physical attraction, but about how we supported each other emotionally, how we stood by each other's side through difficult times, and how we communicated when things were hard. Setting boundaries became a way of establishing respect in our relationship. It wasn't just about defining what was okay and what wasn't, it was about ensuring that we both felt heard, valued, and understood. I learned that self-worth doesn't come from how we look, but from how we treat each other and how we love ourselves despite our imperfections. Our conversations about boundaries opened up new avenues for growth. We both began to recognize that relationships are built on mutual respect. And that respect doesn't just mean agreeing with each other. It means listening, validating each other's feelings, and making space for both partners to express their vulnerabilities without fear of being judged. As I started to find more confidence in my body, despite the changes it was going through, I also realized that I had to respect myself more. I had to set boundaries not only with my husband but with myself. Boundaries around what I was willing to accept in terms of how I let others treat me. I couldn't let my insecurities dictate my worth. And by setting those boundaries, I was taking control of my own narrative, redefining what it meant to be loved and accepted for who I truly was, inside and out. As I reflect on everything that's happened, I realize how much I've grown, not just as an individual, but in my relationship. The journey to healing hasn't been smooth, and it certainly hasn't been quick, but it's been meaningful. We've come to understand each other in deeper ways, especially when it comes to empathy, respect, and love. My husband's comment, though hurtful, opened up a conversation we never had before. It was uncomfortable and painful at first, but through that discomfort, we learned to be more vulnerable with each other. We learned that love isn't just about showing up in good times. It's about being there for one another when things aren't perfect, when you're struggling, and when your body or mind changes in ways you didn't expect. Through this experience, I also realized how much I had to learn about respecting myself, about knowing my worth and not letting it be dictated by my appearance or health. I had to set boundaries not only with my husband but also within myself. I had to stop accepting the idea that my value came from how I looked or how perfect my body was. Instead, I had to learn that love and respect are built on mutual understanding, not just physical attraction. While the pain of the comment didn't go away overnight, what followed was a deeper connection between us. I could feel the healing starting. It wasn't just about the apology or the words he said. It was about how we both showed up for each other in the aftermath. He learned to listen more, to be more patient with me, and I learned to express my needs more clearly. And now, as we move forward, I know that no relationship is without its bumps. There will always be challenges, especially in times of illness or change. But what matters is that we are willing to grow together, to communicate openly, and to love each other unconditionally, even when we don't get everything right. To anyone watching this, remember that healing is a journey, and it's okay to take your time. If you're in a relationship, remember that love isn't about perfection. It's about learning from the hard moments and growing together. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not just for how you look. Don't let anyone, even the ones you love, make you feel less than. Let's start a conversation in the comments. Have you faced a similar challenge in your relationships? How did you work through it? Share your story, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights into healing, love, and personal growth.